Welcome back, everybody, for day 5, Inspired Conference, Future of Sustainability with Gaëlle Mogli. And the theme for the session today is living a life on purpose and reinventing solidarity on a global scale. Here are some questions to ponder on. How can we all prepare for a day after COVID-19 and contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals? What does living a life of purpose mean? In this session, Gaëlle has brought together a fantastic collection of interviews and video clips that brings together the collective voices of influencers and change agents in the SDG space. We will hear about the call to take action now and how to become an active SDG contributor. Gaëlle has over 15 years of experience in the humanitarian and development aid sector, including as former United Nations spokesperson in Geneva. As we begin our conversation with Gaëlle, be ready to put on your proactive thinking caps to enlist onto hearing and understanding more about the working towards solidarity and becoming active global citizens. Hi, Gaëlle, welcome.
Hi, Vanita. It's a pleasure for me to participate in this conference.
And Gaëlle Mogli is the founder of Connect Aid. Gaëlle, can you tell us a little bit about your background and experience in the international cooperation sector?
So I am a professional in the humanitarian aid sector. I have about 18 years of experience, including as UN spokesperson. To go back a long time ago, after my second master's degree, I have two, one in political science from France, and one in communication from the University of Denver. So after my second master, I started my career as a journalist in Latin America. For 2 years, I covered stories on indigenous tribes and human rights while I was traveling from Guatemala to Venezuela. And those 2 years were very special. I met incredible people. I lived with several tribes. And this is where I was really introduced to sustainable development. So this experience as a journalist kind of helped me get into the UN in 2004. And from there, I worked many years with UNICEF, for example, with the CIS regional office in Geneva. I went on many missions, including in Malawi, in Nepal, in Romania, and many other countries. And for 4 years, I was spokesperson at the United Nations. I represented World Meteorological Organization, WMO, the World Food Program, WFP, and the International Organization for Migration, IOM. So I'm sure the journalists at the Palais des Nations remember me because I was the only spokesperson pregnant twice in a row. So this time as a spokesperson was really, really special for me. And I really enjoyed working at the Palais. And so after this experience with my entire family, this time with my 2 babies, I left to go live in Vanuatu, which is a whole bunch of islands close to New Zealand and Fiji. And I worked there as communication officer for UNICEF in Port Vila. And that's when big Category 5 cyclone hit the country. And so we were actually under there. So we had to hide under the house. It was quite impressive, this cyclone, because it lasted about 8 hours of intense battering. And after that, I participated in the humanitarian response, which also wasn't easy. Coming back home, so back home is in France, but really close to Geneva. I worked afterward for other missions for UNICEF and then for a nonprofit in Switzerland called FXB International, which is today one of Connect Aid's partners.
A very social-driven and impressive portfolio, Gaëlle. And introducing Connect Aid, which is an international solidarity network. Can you tell us more about the innovation and inspiration behind it?
So since 2018, I created Connect Aid, which we also call the International Solidarity Network, which is the first combined philanthropic and humanitarian social network where people can connect with nonprofits, can give back, can volunteer, and also they can follow on their news feed on the social network the sustainable development projects that they choose. So the idea of ConnectAid is to increase the impact of sustainable development action and to connect people to international aid. So let me show you a brief video presentation of ConnectAid.
Poverty, hunger, inequality, environmental issues. Do you want to be a change maker and support humanitarian action, but you don't know where to make a secure donation? To which nonprofit? For what purpose? To improve the transparency and efficiency of the international aid process, we have created ConnectAid, the International Solidarity Network. ConnectAid is a combined humanitarian social network and crowdfunding platform. It is dedicated to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals set by the international community to reduce poverty or protect our planet. Through ConnectAid, you can select meaningful non-profit projects. You can also witness the impact of your generosity in communities around the world. Be part of the movement. Join us at connectaid.com.
During my career, I came to realize that there are millions of non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in the world. Many nonprofits actually face enormous difficulties. For example, they face competition for some of them, also great skepticism from people, from donors who are not sure where to give, where their money goes, and whether the humanitarian actions done by the nonprofits are as effective as promised. And nowadays, if you're a nonprofit, and if you're not an expert in communication and in fundraising, you die, you can't survive. Nonprofits really need to spend a lot of money and a lot of time to raise funds and communicate instead of spending those resources on what they're actually supposed to do, on the projects in the field, on the beneficiaries, and on the cause. So I thought there must be a way to allow nonprofits to become more impactful and a way to involve people on a global scale to really show them what sustainable development and humanitarian aid is all about. So with my associates, we decided to create ConnectAid, which allows individuals, associations, NGOs, corporates to become actors of the Sustainable Development Goals.
And a lot of people are talking about SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And for the benefit of our viewers who don't know what they are, can you explain what the SDGs are and how is the COVID-19 crisis affecting these global goals?
Yeah, in case some of you are not very familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, here is a little brief overview. The SDGs were adopted by the United Nations in 2015. Before we talked about the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. So those SDGs are a sort of to-do list for the world with a 15 years time frame for the 2030 agenda. The time frame of what we would like to see changed in the world. So there are 17 goals, for example, to end poverty, to ensure healthy life for all, to protect our planet, build a global partnership for development, and so on. Now we are 5 years in, and we are entering what we call the decade of action. So to talk about the current crisis that we're going through nowadays, those objectives, those sustainable development goals are more important than ever. If we look at UN statistics, we see that the coronavirus crisis will push 35 to 60 million people into extreme poverty. Actually, 1.6 billion people are at risk of losing their livelihood. 10 million children face acute malnutrition. If we look at the whole world, it's like more than 250 million people who could actually face starvation unless real action is taken to provide food, humanitarian relief to the most vulnerable. The famine, according to the UN, famine could hit more than 30 developing countries. Of course, some of them are already affected by conflict or climate change. The economical impact of the crisis is really disastrous for the most vulnerable population. And if we look at nonprofits, we see already lots of nonprofits unable to deliver aid, which at a moment where it's more than ever necessary. And all this is due to a lack of funding and due to this economical crisis. So for this session of the conference, I have prepared a series of podcasts with key SDG actors, and I would like to introduce you to them. So Connected has invited Dan Thomas, who is Chief Communication Officer at the UN Global Compact, to talk to us about Sustainable Development Goals. Hi, Dan.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Can you talk to us about your involvement in Sustainable Development Goals?
At the UN Global Compact, we're the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, an initiative of the Secretary General to engage the private sector in conducting themselves with principles according to human rights, labor rights, protecting the environment, and anti-corruption. And at the same time, we are driving these companies that we work with, over 11,000 now, driving them to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're really trying to harness the power of the private sector to be part of the solution and to achieve the 2030 agenda.
Could you tell us how, as individuals, we can prepare for the day after COVID-19 and how we can contribute to the SDGs?
Well, we believe that COVID-19, although it's been a massive shock to the whole world, to the systems that we operate in, it's affecting so many companies and so many people who work for those companies and so many of the customers and the people in the supply chains of those companies. It's been such a shock to the world and to the world's economy. But we believe it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to recover stronger, to recover better, and to recover together. And so seeing the glass as sort of, half full rather than half empty, we do see this as a major opportunity. It's shown us that we can adapt, we can change the way that we operate, change the way we work and behave, and the way we conduct our lives. And as a result, it's kind of opened, I think, all of our eyes to the fact that we are adaptable, we can change, and the Sustainable Development Goals are still the roadmap that can lead the world to a better place. And they are the roadmap to get us out of this mess that not just COVID-19 has created, that huge sort of global health crisis, but there's also the climate crisis, which is ongoing. We can't forget about that. We need to change so many things about the way we operate and the way we live and the way we conduct our business to address the climate crisis. And then, of course, there's an inequality crisis that the world is also facing, a crisis in terms of race and gender. And these are things that we know that we have to address. And so in some ways, this shock that the world has been forced into by this global pandemic, COVID-19, is in some ways a wake-up call and an opportunity to build back better and to recover stronger together. In terms of the crisis, we've actually taken a kind of back to basics approach. One of the things that we ask all the companies that are part of the UN Global Compact to do is to sign up to these 10 principles about protecting human rights and labor rights, protecting the environment, and not being corrupt. Those principles are as relevant today as they were when we were created 20 years ago. And in many ways, when things get really tough, when decisions get tough, when leaders really struggle, they need to go back to those principles and reflect on what those principles that they've signed up to say and how they need to conduct themselves based on a principle-driven approach. So it really does come down to principles at the end of the day. In terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, I mean, we do believe that the SDGs are the roadmap that the world already has. We've had them for 5 years. We had them before this crisis, and we have them for the next 10 years, the decade of action, as the Secretary General is calling it. And those goals, those 17 goals, still offer the best roadmap to get the world back on track and to create the world that we all want, ensuring that no one gets left behind. Clearly, the job is going to be even harder now because of these crises, the climate crisis, the inequality crisis, and specifically the COVID-19 crisis. But the goals and the targets to get us to those goals are still there, and they're still our best bet to get through this.
Thank you, Dan. Did you have a look at the connected link that I sent you?
I think this is a great initiative, bringing people together, bringing the sector together to support our way out of this crisis, I think is a really important initiative. I think it is by working together and supporting each other that we can do that best. This is a time for partnership. This is a time to put rivalries aside. This is a time to put sort of higher purpose first and to put people first. And it's really, I think, in that spirit that you've created this great initiative. So thank you.
Connected has invited Adam Rogers for a podcast. Adam Rogers was a UN spokesperson with me at the Palais des Nations in Geneva, and now is a strategy communication advisor and an author of numerous books on sustainable development. Hi, Adam.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Adam, can you talk to us a little bit about your latest book, which is called Taking Online Action for SDGs?
This book is grounded in my belief that we all have something to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. And to achieve them will require everyone's sort of active participation. I believe that we all have sort of innate talents that we come into this life with. And that part of our purpose in life is to discover what those talents are, to refine them, and then to put them into action for the benefit of others. And when we do that, we feel passionate about life, we feel energetic, luck starts to fall our way. I believe we start connecting with the right people at the right time. And so this book, Taking Online Action, is about, sort of describes what are the Sustainable Development Goals, the 160. You have the 17 SDGs, but you have the targets where the real interesting meat of the SDGs are. And so going into the targets, finding out which ones you resonate with. And then in this new world of online connectivity and social media, I believe, we can reach out and connect with others. We can empower others. We can be empowered by others. We can find causes we want to support. We can launch causes, we can join causes. And so the book goes into how to build, if you have a cause, you want a website. So I go through all the, A to Z on how to build a website, how to launch an e-newsletter, how to build an email database, how to refine your messaging, how to write effective emotional messaging that connects with others, how to take good pictures, how to choose good pictures, how to craft a social media strategy that achieves results for your SDG cause. Chapter 9 goes into how to mobilize resources, how to do crowdfunding, support, peer-to-peer funding, how to connect with donors and foundations with your cause, so how to raise money online. And then the last chapter addresses really the digital divide. So it goes into really, only about 60% of humanity is online, which is an enormous rate of growth, a lot more than just 10 years ago, which was down, I think, below 50%. So more and more people are getting online, but there's still a divide. And so there are a lot of digital have-nots and those stuck on the other side of the divide, especially now during this COVID-19 pandemic. It's pretty rough in the pandemic economy or even in the new era of schooling online. If you're on the other side without access to online, or some might have a laptop, but you can't afford connectivity, maybe there is no connectivity, those people are falling further and further behind. And so one important area in which those of us have the talents or the ability to help, bridge the divide and ultimately close up the chasm so that we can all be in this new world connected to a digital economy and the resources and the learning that we need online. So that's in short the new book.
That sounds like a very interesting book and very relevant to what we do. Do you think Connected can actually contribute to SDGs?
It's a perfect example of how you're using online tools and technology and connectivity to make a distinct and tangible and effective contribution to the achievement of the SDGs, especially in the alleviation of the suffering in humanitarian context and in their recovery, and which is all very important. And mobilizing resources and promoting, like coordinating and helping those who want to contribute or be a part of the solution to get to the right place at the right time where that contribution can have an impact. Because often you'll have doubling up or volunteering, for example, for people who can volunteer online. UN Volunteers has a really good platform for this, where they do the online volunteering. But I think it lacks that link to getting the right resources to the right places at the right time.
How do you think we can prepare to the day after COVID-19, and how as individuals can we contribute to sustainable development goals?
I think COVID in this pandemic amplifies the importance of the SDGs. So there is no, let's get back to business when the COVID-19 is over. It's like right now we need to ramp up efforts to achieve the SDGs. And we're now in this decade of development that the Secretary General launched last December. 2020 to 2030, we're supposed to have concerted action, focused action on all the areas of the SDGs that can be accelerated, the areas, we need to address the blockages and the obstacles, and we need to really push forward with intensity so that we can achieve as many of these targets as possible. If we don't achieve all of them, that's what, the MDGs, we didn't achieve all of them. You want to set goals that are higher so that in the next few years after that, you need to set your sights high and to work as hard as you can to get there and not be discouraged or overwhelmed by their immensity. But now in COVID-19, I believe it's the SDGs, the framework, a world that is formed and informed by the SDGs is the only world that can defeat this virus. Even in so-called rich countries like the United States, which is the worst, there are certain principles of the SDGs that would have helped protect this country. The SDGs is not about let's make the whole planet rich. A lot of it is about building an attitude of compassion and thinking about breaking down this barrier between us and them, right? Because there is no us and them. On this planet, when you view it from the moon, it's just us, 7 billion of us on a warm rock spinning through cold space trying to figure things out. And until we really get that. And so in this country where everybody had this individualist about, the mask is not going to help me, or I'm not going to wear a mask, or nobody can tell me what to do. So they go out without the mask. The thing is, they could have contracted the disease the day before, and what they're doing is they're spreading it, right? And unless they're a psychopath, and most people are not psychopaths. Psychopaths is a psychological condition that desensitizes you, but most people are not. They just need to be somehow enlightened or aware. Cowboys running around without their masks, infecting everyone, if they really knew what they were doing and really connected with others. So it's not about me, the mask. It's about us. You see, and that's the important distinction of the SDGs, because the SDGs really build this, it's about us. And here's what we need to do to heal us. It's no longer like the earlier development frameworks were like us and them. And that's why they didn't work so well. It was like us, the rich, need to help them, the poor. They're saying that's why it didn't work so well. But the SDGs really emphasize this dimension of us. And that's a reality, because us and them is a delusion. And whenever you're basing a framework on a delusion, it's doomed to fail. And so now in COVID-19, we see it's about us. The virus is jumping from one person to the other. So the mask is about helping to protect us. If we had masks for everybody, it's a low-tech solution, but probably the most effective, because those people who get sick, if they keep it in themselves and they get better and it's out, it doesn't matter the antibodies, because if everybody does that, it'll get out of every individual on earth who has it. And then it will be over. And it's only by thinking about us and putting on the mask and when we get sick, isolating ourselves, that we can defeat this thing in sometimes a month or 6 weeks. And some people die and some people get, for those people who survive, it's 6 weeks. And so the SDG framework, also the SDG framework about, education and health and having health, and infrastructure and proper governance, all of these dimensions of the 17 SDGs, all of them contribute to a world where the virus would not be possible. And so now is the time, it's not about the day after COVID, no, now is the time with COVID that we need to ramp up efforts to achieve the SDGs. And that's the only way we're going to beat this thing.
Thank you very much, Adam Rogers. It was really a pleasure. Now I would like to introduce you to Amaya Gillespie, whom I met in 2005 while she was working as the director of the UN Study on Violence Against Children. Today, she is a career coach focusing on international development. Amaya, I have an important question. What does it mean for you to live a life on purpose?
Well, that's a good question, a very good question, because actually that's the hashtag that I like to use on my LinkedIn, is life on purpose. And it really was the concept behind when I came back to Australia after working for the UN for quite a long time and starting my career coaching business. That really was the concept behind it, was this idea of continuing to live a life on purpose. And I think a lot of people working in international development, whether it's with the United Nations or civil society organizations or others, they definitely are driven by this sense of purpose. And now that I'm a career coach working with those people, it's basically a daily discussion. It's about how people really feel that sense of purpose and how they experience what their jobs mean to them. Currently, I guess it's always been a very strong driver for me, this idea that you're contributing to something much bigger than yourself, but often much bigger than even the project or the program that you're working on, that it can lead to a really big change. And I guess the work that we were both doing when we met on the study on violence against children is a really good example, because that was the very early stages of really looking at how we could really activate the child rights movement, but with a very specific programmatic outcome, that it wasn't necessarily human rights just for human rights' sake, but we could actually see what it means in children's lives, and particularly looking at child protection issues. And in a way, it was packaging that complex idea of child protection into something that was violence against children, which people felt like they understood much more than that concept of child protection. And in those early days, we didn't have much data, there wasn't much advocacy, we didn't have a specific network that was identifiable. So all those things that we know builds a strong movement, if you like, and can really make a change. It was really the beginning, and we actually saw that happen with the establishment of a special representative and all sorts of things that we thought wasn't going to be possible. It wasn't a perfect time. The money was, a challenge. There's always these challenges, but I think this idea that drives a lot of people working in development is that, this is bigger than an individual and it's worth pushing for. And I guess, I've had a number of experiences like that too, also working with HIV, which again, you really have this sense that you're moving something forward in a really big way. And I guess in my coaching business now, that experience of actually being inside programs is super helpful in developing rapport with clients. When I meet people on Zoom, because I mainly talk to people online, and even before COVID, mainly talk to people online in all different parts of the world. And you just have this instant rapport because almost universally people are driven somehow by this idea of purpose. So I feel like where I am now, it's still a very strong demonstration of that idea of supporting others and really having purpose and meaning being front and center in your life.
And how do you relate the Sustainable Development Goals to this life on purpose?
Well, I think it is a really interesting time because it's hard to believe that anybody would ever really want to argue that being sustainable is better than being unsustainable. But it's taken us a long time to get to this point where actually policies are starting to align with practice. And it really is this bigger vision from a whole range of different points of view coming together around this idea of sustainability. So I think it has been a real moment in time for us where a number of things are coming together. And in a sense, we've been able to name it as sustainability. I feel like it's still very much grounded in this idea of human rights, that human rights are so foundational to life itself. And this idea of sustainability, again, is so integral to actually being able to continue to live well, not just live, but live well. And I guess one thing COVID has taught us is how we always say how connected we are, but we can really feel it now. We're all connected. And I'm really hoping that this COVID moment helps the environment movement, but not just environment. Sustainability goes beyond that. And that really, as we come out of COVID, it's going to be difficult, but as we learn to live with it and as we control it, as we have other viruses, we learn to control them and live with them, maybe, if we can't completely be rid of them. But I'm hoping that we do find this as a moment to strengthen the idea of sustainability.
Thank you, Gaëlle, for showing us those very informative videos. Why is Connect Aid a purpose-driven organization?
So Connect Aid, the International Solidarity Network, is actually on a mission. We want to be a part of the change and to encourage solidarity differently. Our goal is to connect you to international aid for more social, humanitarian, and environmental impact. Therefore, what we do is that we offer a new approach to international solidarity with the belief that together we can tackle sustainable development and the disastrous consequences of COVID-19. So through connectaid.com, the nonprofits can gain access to a new tool, to the tools they need to communicate and finance their actions to be more impactful in the field. And on the other hand, individuals can select projects by country or by sustainable development goals to really connect with international aid.
Yes, there's always strength in partnerships. And how are Connect Aid members and partners contributing to sustainable development goals?
We have amazing partners and team members working with Connect Aid. I'd like to show you very quickly the site. So this is the homepage with what we do, some of our ongoing projects. And those are our main partners. Let me very quickly show you our team members. Those are our web developers and my associates, our ambassadors, and the members of the strategy committee. Some of our projects. We have projects in India, international projects related to social services and COVID-19, projects in Rwanda, India, Vietnam, South Africa, Cambodia, Haiti, Burkina Faso, Myanmar. And this is very easy to choose your project by selecting by SDG or by country. I'd like to introduce you to one of our strategy committee member, Jean Ayoub, who is Secretary General of the International Social Service, ISS Network, based in Geneva. Hi, Jean. So you were one of the first nonprofit that joined Connect Aid, and you have placed several of your ongoing projects on the platform. Why did you join Connect Aid?
You know, Gaëlle, as you remember, we've met already a couple of years ago, and we ourselves were in the middle of a transformation process. And one of the things we were looking at is that what is there out there in terms of new technologies, new approaches to fundraising, to crowdfunding and things like that. And I was a little bit, let's say, consumed by the traditional way of doing things, which did generate some income for us, but some of them were lost investments. So your idea in terms of providing a purpose-driven communication tool that covers as well the social and humanitarian impact were in the heart of what we were looking for, actually. And then together we studied the prospects, we studied the vision you had with Connect Aid, and I frankly liked it very much. As you know, I liked it so much that I am part of the founding members or the consultative committee of your foundation, which is good to me. For me, I mean, Connect Aid in a very simple terms, it really offers personalized experience in giving, allowing this participant to have a nearly real-time interaction with the project. But not only with the project in terms of literature, it with the project in terms of who's doing the project, or in terms of sharing some of the pictures of our beneficiaries, looking at the locations on a map, and having a say in anywhere between I like or I don't like, or, you know, giving suggestions and things like that. I think the combination of a purpose-driven communication tool with a crowdfunding platform, with all the security of giving around it, and the personal experience of anyone he or she would like to participate, all of that mingled very well in one system, which you call Connect Aid. And I think today I can freely say, after 2 years of hindsight, I trust the system, and I think it's an innovative approach. I would encourage any other organizations to tap into it.
Thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about your ongoing projects. How are they contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals? And especially, how do they help recover from the COVID-19 crisis that we're living now?
Okay, let me start by your second question to tell you very frankly why I do not pretend that my organization has become an expert in COVID-19 fighting. I think what was crucial for us is to adapt our way of doing things, which is providing personalized social legal support to migrant children and families across international borders, and replace that personal contact with technology-based, communication-based, screen-based contact, basically, and adopt all our evaluation methods and due diligence and checks and balances to that. So that was our first priority, and luckily we have already tested that, pandemic or not, in recent years, just to check if at one point of time we are compelled to do something like that, would be fast enough to put it in place. And actually, since this epidemic became a worldwide pandemic, we were able to put this system in place within 9 days, and it was functional all over the world. To go back to your first question about how our programs in general support and tap into the SDGs, we mainly focus on, actually, since our foundation in 1924, on two main targets today. They are number 10 and number 16. Reduce inequalities for number 10, and peace, justice, and strong institutions for number 16. This is our core business taps into that. We promote social inclusion, that's target 2 of number 10, and we facilitate orderly and responsible migration and the mobility of people. That's target 7 for number 10. And you know, more than 80% of our 130 members across the world are into migration, into facilitating social inclusion. And the heart of our work in designing personalized solutions to individual complex transborder problems is all about promoting social inclusion.
Thank you very much, Jean-Yves. Your social services are really having a great impact on the most vulnerable populations out there, and your action is more than ever necessary, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. I also wanted to introduce you to Ankal Khurana, who is an emergency specialist, and she's one of the strategic committee members of Connected. Ankal, could you please give us an overview of the current emergency situation in fragile states?
In fragile states, where even the availability of soap and a regular supply of water are a challenge, the pandemic saw a reversal of humanitarian and development gains. Most people in fragile states had a clear choice between economic survival and physical distancing. In other words, for a parent, stay at home and isolate is absolutely meaningless when they have kids to feed. A lot of the resources in the aid community had to be diverted to COVID-19 preparedness and response efforts, making sure that aid workers are safe when delivering aid, making sure that the protective measures are in place, both for healthcare workers and the people, so that they can still seek healthcare in facilities. Which means that additional resources are needed to compensate for those losses. Needless to say, the worst impact of the pandemic is felt by the most vulnerable sections of the society, whether it's refugees, migrants, female heads of households, people living below poverty line, pregnant women, the elderly, and so on and so forth, who more than anything else felt the secondary impact of the crisis. We know that global supply chains were affected at an unprecedented scale. Take Yemen, for example, where 80% of the population is in need of humanitarian assistance. There are about 19 million people in need of healthcare, and a large number of the hospitals are not even fully functional. Famine, war, collapsing of the economy and now the pandemic have had devastating impact on Yemen's healthcare system. The pandemic, however, is an opportunity to build back better and find more effective ways for epidemic preparedness. So for countries to make sure they can withstand and respond to future waves of the pandemic, but also large-scale non-health emergencies. When health systems collapse, deaths from the outbreak can very quickly be exceeded by deaths from preventable or treatable conditions no longer managed by a failing healthcare system. It is therefore absolutely crucial to maintain essential life-saving health services even whilst addressing the pandemic.
Thank you for those very interesting perspectives and podcast sessions. Going back to the theme of the session on living a life on purpose and reinventing solidarity on a global scale, what are your key takeaway messages for our global participants listening today surrounding the future of sustainability?
Well, I think the key message is that we each have a role to play to inspire change and for parents, but also for future generations, for our children. We cannot afford to wait. We must take action now. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, are really the best option to reduce the worst impact of COVID-19 and also to recover better. I believe that nowadays we live in a time where many among us feel this need for more purpose, more meaning, more solidarity. And this is kind of a revolutionary movement with this common feeling, and I'm sure many of you feel it as well, that things need to change, that we're all in this planet together, and that we must be the change that we want to see in the world. SDGs are not just UN goals, they're everyone's goals, and it involves everyone. The pandemic is really a wake-up call with something that never happened before, with this possibility to not go back to normal, because this normal is not sustainable. We can all become change makers in that thing. I think this is really the main message. I truly hope that Connect Aid will help facilitate this evolution towards more solidarity. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. There will be links and statistics provided for reference. Please visit connectaid.com, which we're launching now. We created Connect Aid for you, and since it's a viral platform, we're also creating it with you. I wanted to end this conference with a message of hope with a video which was created by Connect Aid's communication partner, Anthem Creative, who is a communication agency based in Canada. And it's on the current crisis that we're facing today.
Dear COVID-19, for generations, through devastation, heartache, destruction, and evil, humanity has proven its resilience and power. Our history shows that we are masters of the comeback. Our DNA is woven from grit, ingenuity, creativity, and love. We are lemonade makers, hope manufacturers, the ones who always get back up, and get back up, and get back up. Get back up. We counter every blow with a pivot, and haymaker after haymaker. If we cannot gather in person, we will harness the digital world and assemble by the masses. We will reshape connection and redeem distraction. We will pick up the pieces and rebuild from this rubble.
Of a whole new world.
And we will do it again and again. because this current reality is not our identity. This devastation will not be our end. It will be the fuel that drives our better future. The powerful comeback that marks our generation. The proof is in our history. The stake is in the ground. We will not stay down. We will run into our fear and give it its name. We will tear down our anxiety, surround it with love, and remind ourselves that we are not alone. And for generations, they will know us by our love. Because this is our secret. It cannot be taken from us. So we will love, and we will grow, and we will rebuild. And we'll do it again, and again, and again.
Gaëlle Mogli, founder of Connect Aid, Global Solidarity Ambassador and Advocate, thank you for your time and input, and we look forward to further updates from you in the near future. Thank you.
It was really a pleasure to participate in the Inspired Conference organized by RISE. Thank you.